I right before COVID, I bought an RV and I've never used it in Dallas. So it's going to be my ski mobile. So you come up, I'll take you up to the mountain.
I love it. We'll be ski bums together. It's going to be fantastic. Welcome to another exciting edition of Teague Talks. Today we're sitting down with Rob Smith, new president and CEO of Stonebridge Companies. We're going to hear about his journey from Aruba to Aimbridge to Stonebridge and find out a lot about operations. Thanks for joining.
I'm excited to be here. It's an awesome organization and look forward to kind of chatting where we're at this point.
So I want to hear what your plans are with Stonebridge. I want to hear sort of your view of the future and how you guys are going to do amazing things, and whatever we can learn from you about your thoughts and views on the future. But first, I got to hear about who Rob Smith is and how Rob Smith got in this industry and how he ended up where he is. We know you came from Aimbridge, long stint there, but we got to hear, who was Rob Smith? How did you get started? What was the first job?
I born and raised in Lakeland, Florida, a little town in between Orlando and Tampa. Went to college at USF in Tampa. And while I was in college, got a job at a hotel. I was a waiter in a Michelin 2-star restaurant. And the general manager's name was Dave Johnson. So met a guy right off the bat who was in love with the industry and went to school to be an accountant. And he convinced me to stay in the hotel. And I went into accounting, did night audit, was a staff accountant, did ARAP, and I absolutely hated it. So I went back to Dave and I said, "I'm sorry, Dave, but I sort of wasted my time here." And he put me into an ops training program. And by then he had gone to corporate. And by 26, I got my first GM job in Atlanta and renovated the hotel for the Olympics, had a full sellout to Zebco, and had a great, successful Olympics. And then Wyndham came back to me and asked me, they said, "Hey, Rob, that renovation went so well. Will you go to Jamaica and run the hotel while we build a water park?"
Wait, what was that hotel in Atlanta? Was that the Wyndham in Atlanta? That was the old
It was the Vinings property on Paces
Okay.
Ferry.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
So anyway, I went to Jamaica and I went to the Hilton Rose Hall and ran the hotel while they built the water park. And then they decided to start shifting me around the Caribbean. I was in Vieques for a while. I was in at the El Conquistador in Puerto Rico for a little bit. I was in St. Thomas for a short stint, helping them at the Sugar Bay property. And then they asked me to go to Aruba as the hotel manager to renovate the hotel there. It was up for a full scale renovation, and I went as the hotel manager. But within, I don't know, 4 months, got promoted to the GM. I was 29. It was a pretty big box. It was 500 rooms, had 8 restaurants, at a 40,000 square foot casino. And I intended to stay there a year max, and I stayed there for 17 years. Was GM of 2 big box resorts with casinos, and for 5 years I did a tourism role. I was the CEO of the Hotel Association and the Convention Bureau. It was kind of a private public reporting deal, so it much different than a normal hotel association. We worked hand in hand with the tourism company to promote and advertise the destination. So, and then Dave called me and Dave said, "Hey, Rob, I've been trying to get you to join Aimbridge." So I came back to join Aimbridge.
Wait, we got that. But before we get to Aimbridge, I got to go back. What's it like raising a family and getting married? And where's your wife from? How'd you convince her that this is where we need to set up life for 17?
Well, my wife is from Aruba. I often joke that I went there with 2 suitcases and I came home with a wife and 4 kids. But yeah, she's from the island, and we got married there, and was never my intention to stay, and it was a bit hard to convince her to leave, to be honest with you. But I knew I wanted more for my career, and was hoping to take the next step. So convinced her to go to Texas.
Yeah. So tell me how the phone call with Dave Johnson goes to convince you to leave the island. How's that go?
Well, he had called me several times. Actually, I kicked myself because he called me when he started the company. And I had 4 small kids, and he was looking for me to take deferred income and whatnot. And I just wasn't in that position. So he called me when they got big enough. They had about 60 hotels. Hard to believe that that's big enough now that they have 1,600. But he told my wife, he said, listen, how late does Rob work? And she said, typically till 6:30, 7 o'clock. And he said, what time do the kids go to bed? The kids go to bed at 10. So he said, well, Rob's going to travel, but you're only going to miss him 3 hours a day. So she went for that, and I became an area manager with Aimbridge and kind of worked my way up till eventually being the president on the full service side before leaving.
Yeah. Remind me, when did you become president? How long have you been president? It was a couple years.
I was president for about 3 years, but before that I was the executive vice president. So I still already ran the division. So
Yeah,
I
right.
ran the division for about 6 years.
What's it like working with Dave?
Dave's the best. He is, he's everybody I run into in the industry says, "Oh, you work for Dave. He's my best friend," and they truly believe it. So he's an incredible relationship guy. He knows the business. He knows how to build companies, and I feel like I learned from the right guy throughout my career.
I can echo that. I mean, he built a great company. It takes a special person to do that. So wait, remind me, how'd you get to Stonebridge? Did Navin interview or the board interview you?
The board gave me a call, and in February of this year, and I was not interested in leaving Aimbridge. I had a great job, and I ran a great division, and but I was intrigued a bit by the fact that it was a CEO. It is that next step I always wanted to take, and certainly didn't feel that I was ready to take it at a company the size of Aimbridge. So, they said, we're going to be in Dallas on Friday. You don't have to come to us. We'll come to you. And drove up to the airport, and I met, surprised because almost the entire board was there. And I spent 5 hours with them. And when I left, I called my wife and I said, I can't believe I'm telling you this, but I think I'm leaving Aimbridge. I just clicked with these guys, and I love the vision and where they're going. And I really like, when you look at an evolution of the company, and I said I joined Aimbridge when we were 60 hotels. I left when we were, more than 1,500. I love where Stonebridge is right now. It's an exciting time. We're growing, but not just for the sake of growth. We want to grow smart, and I just like the trajectory. The whole thing just made a lot of sense to me, not only as my next step, but as a first time CEO.
Yeah, compare and contrast with sort of an Aimbridge and Stonebridge, and even Stonebridge to sort of original Stonebridge to where it is today. Because even Navin has evolved, right? It went from just Navin to now he's got capital partners and he's blown up. So
Yeah,
give
I
me
mean, Navin started as a developer, and that's how I knew him before I got to know him, and very impressed with the developments he's done, the repositionings, the repurposed buildings, the bank downtown Denver that he converted. There's a school downtown Denver that's incredible. And I've always respected him as a developer. And what happened along the years is he developed, he ran the hotels. And then as he sold them, people said, well, will you stick around and still manage it? And so that's really how he broke into third party management, not because he wanted to, but because as he sold assets, people asked him to stay. And then eventually, the company grew till, let's say, January of this year. We were about 85 hotels, and about 50% of it was third party management. And then, of course, we had the real acquisition in May. And so now we're up to about 160 hotels, and we've got about 61 owners. And Navin's group is now called Copford, and they're one of our larger owners. But the whole dynamic has changed. We are now, a fully third party operator, and that's our position to grow upon.
which I think is important to notice to recognize it again. Back, it's not Navin's company anymore, right? I mean, he is major shareholder, but to your point, the board called you, not Navin. They're running it. They're in charge, shareholders and the like.
Yeah, I mean, it's Navin is one of our biggest owners, and I work for all of our owners. I learned that at Aimbridge. I had 180 owners in Aimbridge just in my division. So, you know, I work for all my owners, and Navin's one of the biggest ones, and he's a great partner. And I got to tell you, this 8 week period has just been great. We've also become fast friends. I traveled with him yesterday, and he's just a great guy to get to know. And I'm really learning a lot on the development and the business development side from him.
Yeah, he's a special person. I mean, to get to where the stature that he is, and he's just great human being. And we did a Teague talk with him. We did a Teague walk at the schoolhouse hotel that you mentioned. It was an
Uh,
awesome one. Everybody go back and watch that. But he's just a special person. So
yeah,
it's not anyone, as much time as you can spend around those types of people, the better. So you mentioned it might have been before your time because it happened a few months ago, but the Real Hospitality Group acquisition, Ben Siegel and his team. Tell me what you can about that
sure.
acquisition.
That was on the table when I interviewed with the board, and certainly that was part of the plan. Aimbridge asked me to give a fairly lengthy notice period, 5 months. So they delayed the integration of the real whole merger. It's really an acquisition, but we want it to be more of a merger until I got on the ground, which I appreciated. So it's just a great addition. It opens up, we went from being in 12 states to being in 25 states. It certainly grows our portfolio on the East Coast. And I think more importantly, something that was not recognized as much during the acquisition period, but combined with Legacy Stonebridge now, we have 47 independent hotels. And they're all, nice, both boutique and larger box independent properties. Some are soft branded, but it really gives us a niche that I don't think other third party operators have. And it's a space that I think is going to be growing in the next 10 years with the cost of branding. So it opens up a lot of doors for us. And it's really not the last one. We got a couple other HMAs or M&As that we are looking at very seriously right now. And we're looking to grow smart and grow steady, but we are looking to grow.
What just curious, what's the sales pitch on an M&A, right? I mean, whether it's Real and Ben or whether it's the next person, what's the sales pitch? Why should we do this? Why are we better together? Give me that.
Well, you look for somebody first and foremost that has a complementary culture because you don't want two cultures that aren't going to mix because first of all, as Stonebridge came in, we're not keeping the Stonebridge culture. Real's not keeping the Real culture. It really is going to be the blended culture. And I went through 7 of these with Aimbridge, by the way. So I'm a bit of a merger expert, both at what we failed in and what we did well in. So first and foremost, we're looking at culture, but then we're looking at complementary areas. What are they good at that maybe we have opportunities in? What are we good at that they have opportunities? We looked at a lot of the vertical sales because the way I've learned to run above property is in vertical expertise. You can't put a select service person in a luxury hotel. So it really complemented us to kind of fill out our verticals. And there's going to be a lot of synergies. When I look at deployment, I look at vertical expertise, owner compatibility, and then lastly, geo deployment. There's going to be also some synergies in geo deployment where folks don't have to travel as far to get to their hotel. And we have density in markets that we can even do things like complexing. We're going to save our owners a lot of money with the density we have over being able to complex in certain markets positions.
So you mentioned M&A, but I'm curious, being the broker, but how involved do you guys get? Your third party management, we get that. And so your day-to-day focus is operations and running them better. But I'm curious how involved you guys get on the transaction side.
Oh, we have to be involved
Right.
because, it's not just about the numbers. Like I said, it's about the culture, it's about the build out, it's about the synergies, it's about the redundancy. You have to make sure that it's going to fit. And you also have to make sure that the multiple makes sense and that the synergies make sense to squeeze that multiple down in a 3-year period. So we're very, very involved.
What do you think that future looks like? Acquisitions, dispositions, and even development.
Well, our biggest growth in my focus is going to be organic third party growth. And I know that's what everybody says, but, Stonebridge has a real advantage that I don't think is in the marketplace right now because we're sitting on a pretty big fund. And the fund is not to buy hotels, it's to co invest, either through key money or to be a part of the capital stack or sliver equity. And, not a lot of folks have that. And even when owners don't necessarily need that to complete the capital stack, it really gives them the confidence that we believe in the performa and we believe in the people that we have to run the hotel, that we're going to put our money side by side with them on the investment. So I think that's really going to help our growth. Plus, there's a lot of management change in the air right now out there. Coming out of COVID, the average company, 30% of their contracts are month to month, and they're looking actively shopping, and there's a lot of RFPs that are floating out there. So we're looking at organic growth through acquisitions. Hopefully, we see some significant change in interest rates that is going to really put a lot of pent up demand out there. And we're looking at third party management changes due to performance.
So let's talk. You hit on it, but let's talk operations. But really, let's talk the change that's happening in the operational environment. I'm going to lead you where I'm going with that is we're hearing from a lot of our traditional sort of owner operators who, even where Navin was 20 years ago, we operate what we own. And post COVID, everyone's getting really tired of operations. And dare I say, operations keeps getting tougher and tougher with expense creep, right? Whether it's taxes, whether it's insurance, whether it's labor costs, whether it's franchise fees, whether it's all the above. Oh, by the way, labor is difficult. Everything's just getting more complicated. So people inherently don't want to do it anymore. So they're looking for quality third party options. I'm assuming you're seeing the same stuff, but what's your answer to those people?
First of all, it is very difficult to self-manage for a few reasons. First of all, our fairway 3% of top line revenue. An average owner operator is looking at 7-8% infrastructure to manage a hotel. So we're automatically going to be able to do it cheaper. Then you look at the scale. With 160 hotels, we can buy things cheaper. We have better access to talent. We have better access to the things you mentioned, insurance and workers' comp and all those things. So if somebody's third party managing, it's typically in the real economy scale where, there's family members that are working the front desk and things like that. You're not going to be a real institutional investor or a high net worth person and self-manage. It's not in the business model. So, the important part is, Stonebridge is very careful and transparent in the fact that, we don't charge secondary fees. We're very transparent. We charge that top line fee, and everything else that we run through the hotel is really a co-op. Things like revenue management, that's not a profit center for us. We run that as a cooperative to make sure that we're doing a great job. And by the way, that's one thing I will give a commercial for Stonebridge. When I got here, their top line team is the best I've worked with. I mean, between their digital team and their revenue management top line team, the company, and I can't take any credit for this, walking in the door on an aggregate basis is running 109% market share, and is up about 6.5% year over year, same store in rooms revenue, and that's almost 3 times the market right now. So, my job is really going to be to make sure that we got the operations build out and the deployment right, but they're doing a great job already on the top line.
And remind me where you are geographically. And I know you guys are Denver and a real East Coast, but tell me all over.
Yeah, and we are pretty much, like I said, we're in 25 cities. So, I mean, our concentration, we have probably 25, 30 hotels in the Denver metro area. On the East Coast, we probably have 60 hotels. We've got a fairly significant presence in Nashville, with fairly significant presence in Florida, and really all through the Midwest. So we're pretty spread out now. It's not 25 states is almost half the country. So
let's talk. I'm going to get on a tangent real fast, but how
please.
hard is labor? Is labor still really hard? And I'm talking GMs as well as sort of, down the line level employees, but is labor still a problem? Is it tough to convince people to come show up every day and take pride in your work? Or is it?
It's not as much of a problem at the executive level. If you create the right environment, I believe in that, we need to pay our GMs at least 15% above market because they're the most important person in the building. And I don't mean to diminish any other role in the hotel, but as an above property person, I can't be there every day to run the building. They've got to be entrepreneurs and they've got to be the best in the business.
Right.
It is still difficult to acquire line level help. One of the things that we're doing here at Stonebridge is we're doing our best to make sure that not only we give a line level person the job, but we also give them a path. I
Yeah.
was at a hotel last week in New York, and the housekeeper told me that every time she hires a housekeeper, she tells them, if you want to get out of the rooms, I promise you in 1 year, we're going to move you somewhere else within the building. And, some people want to stay and do housekeeping their whole career, and we're paying very competitive wages to do that these days. But, other people want to grow. I mean, I look at myself and,
Right.
I started as a waiter. I've had, one of the things I think that makes me unique as a CEO, because there's not a lot of us that are also operators, but, I was a food and beverage director. I was a rooms division manager. I was a GM for 20 years and, three different asset classes. When I started at Aimbridge, Dave wouldn't let me start in resorts where I was used to. He made me be an area guy over Embassy Suites and Hilton Garden Inns for a year. I've been a VP, I've been an SVP, I've been an EVP, I've been a president. I've worked at just about every level at the property and above property. And I think that's unique. A lot of times the CEOs come out of the finance world, or they come out of different areas of our business. And I'm not saying that's a bad difference, but I can certainly empathize with every level of the people that do the job, both at the property and above property. And I think that puts me in a unique scale.
Yeah, I think your experiences help, right? You've been there, you've done that, you've been at the hotel, the property level. That's who you are. So you're an operator at your core, and now you're just sort of leading people, right? So you went from a player to the coach,
Yep.
and you get it. They understand that you get down, so that makes it easy.
And my time in the Caribbean, Teague, I mean, in Aruba, there's 40 nationalities that live there, and the Aruban people are so beautiful. And I'm not just saying that because I'm married to one, but they really don't care how much you know till they know how much you care. And I've seen so many people go into the islands and fail in 3 months because it's all about them. And I think Aruba taught me to really collaborate and learn how to work with people and learn how to work as a family. And I think it definitely served me well in my time. There was some point I was there for almost 16 and a half years. I thought I'd stay there the rest of my career, but I really wanted something more professionally. If I only wanted what I wanted personally, I would have stayed there because it's probably one of the best places I ever lived and called home. But you learn a lot when you work outside of the country, whether it's Aruba or any other country, because you learn that there's a whole different perspective out there.
That's a great lesson. All right, let's go crystal ball. Give me your crystal ball. Let's talk macroeconomy. What are you seeing? Where's the economy going? Interest rates going down? How quickly? Flat? Who's buying? Who's selling? Give me your worldview for the next 6 to 12 months.
I think it's happening today, and I haven't seen it, but my prediction is there's going to be a 50 basis point drop in interest rates today. I know a lot of people are saying 25, but let's face it, it's an election year. They're going to want to show some movement, even though it's not supposed to be politically motivated. And it's time. It needs to be. The inflation, although a lot of people don't realize that inflation has come down, because when you look at a 23% increase in prices since 2019, those prices haven't changed. So people still feel that 2019 sting, but inflation has somewhat normalized. So it's time to start bringing it down. And there's so many people on the sidelines. The good news is there's a lot of money out there. People's balance sheets are strong. They're just waiting. And a lot of people thought there's going to be a lot of distressed product, and we never really, distressed sales. We never really saw it. Pricing didn't come down, I think mainly because of inflation. So I think coming off of the pandemic, supply has been stymied for at least 4 years. And that's always a great thing. Inflation is good for the hotel business because it drives rate. And we've had the best rate growth we've had in a while. Now, unfortunately, there's been pressure on salaries. I saw a stat yesterday that overall the hotel industry is up 20% in rate since 2019, but it's up 23% in salaries. So we have to be smarter operators, and we have to make sure. And at the same time, there's this combination of a new client who's so experience driven. No matter what asset class they're staying at, they're looking for an experience. So I think I'm very bullish on our business. I think the third party model is going to continue to grow. the brands. It's more profitable for them not to manage. I think they're going to keep the trophy stuff, but I think that they're going to keep spinning off everything else, and they're going to reward operators who can, produce the service scores and halo their brand. So I think it's set up perfect for a company like Stonebridge.
And you think our industry is going to continue to grow and people are going to continue to travel at the same rates that they have, if not more. You're bullish on all of that.
I am. I mean, one of the biggest things that's hurting the U.S. is how strong the dollar is. I mean, it's great that it's strong, but our inbound has not recovered the way it should. But people are still the leisure is still strong. The only thing that I've really seen, and I think we'll continue to see weaken, is we're going back to real and regular seasonality. It's a business hotel is not going to be full on Easter anymore. That was a COVID effect, right? And it's hard to believe when you see people still budgeted that way. But I think we're going to go back to regular seasonality, and there'll be soft periods and strong periods. And we've seen that rate has backed off. We're not going to keep seeing that growth because inflation has come down, right? So we have to be smarter operators and make sure that we're able to bring it to the bottom, because our owners are under a ton of pressure. That they need this relief on cost of capital. 90% of the hotels are on floating rates, right, and their cost of capital has gone through the roof, and they have to find it somewhere. And that's one of the biggest pressures in our industry is owners have been scrambling to make sure that they can cover their cost of capital during this time period. So I think if interest rates do come down significantly, we're going to see a boom. And that can be a positive and a negative for us, because one of the things third-party managers forget is when interest rates are high, there's not a lot of transactions. When there's not a lot of transactions, we don't gain hotels, but we also don't lose hotels, because the number one way you lose a hotel is when you do your job and the owner makes their returns and puts it on the market, and it's hard to relink it at that point. So I think there's going to be a lot of activity in 25 myself, but it's going to remain to be seen.
We like transactions, for the record, so
yes,
we want more of them. And we think the same. We think 25 is going to be a pent up demand. I think there's a little pause right now. Everybody's just kind of waiting to see. Interest rates are certainly one. Election is certainly a big one in there, and then everybody's going to wait and see. But there's already a bunch of pent up demand. So we think 25 is going to be a busy year. But
no, I agree. And, a lot of these owners that, had 5-year holds and that was their business plan, they're in year 7 and 8. And so there's definitely going to be some pent up demand.
Yeah. Easy math, right? 2020, 5 years later is 2025.
Yes.
So there's stuff coming. Okay. Last question. What advice has Navin given you since you've been at Stonebridge?
He only gave me one piece of advice, because he wants to let me spread my wings and do my job. And he wants to make sure that he doesn't hinder that. But the one thing he said to me was, Rob, third-party management is not a commodity. And so many of our competitors make it a commodity, and they race to the bottom of the fee scale and don't appreciate what they bring to the table. And if we're doing our job, we should make our fee threefold in return for that partner. So he said, make sure we don't make ourselves a commodity, and remember that we also get to choose who we do business with. Let's make sure that we partner with the people we want to grow with long term, and we'll be successful. So I think it was great advice.
Yeah, again, sage advice from a brilliant man. I agree. Like we're people, right? We're human beings. Somewhere in there is talent. Somewhere there is work ethic. But you guys are a big people business, right? Operations. So you can make a big difference. We've seen that. We've seen it in the numbers. We've seen in the industry. Operations makes a huge difference. Rob, this is super. Thank you for sitting down. Thanks for letting me pick your brain and dive into your past. And thanks for sharing with us. It's very special.
I appreciate your time and look forward to seeing you.
Sounds great. Thanks, Rob.
Have a great day.